snow drifted sideways across Bay Street, the kind that made even taxis whisper. At 3 in the morning, Malik Thompson slid the maintenance cart against the wall and breathed into his cupped hands. February in Toronto had a way of reaching past coats and into memory. He checked his watch, thinking of Naya's lunchbox and the hydro bill tucked beneath a magnet at home, then touched the edge of a photo taped inside his locker. Alana, mid-laugh, suspended forever at 28. The service radio cracked. Northline Tower, level 22, heat sensor ping near Executive Lounge. Malik sighed, grabbed his flashlight, and followed the familiar artery of the building, electrical room thrumming like a low drum, boiler exhaling, concrete sweating. He moved without hurry, each turn an old friend, steady pace, steady breath. When the alarm chirped again, sharper, he traced it to a maintenance panel beside the executive lounge, popped the cover, and reset the stubborn switch. Then came a different sound. Soft, human, wrong. A muted thud. A breath snagged in a throat. Malik swept the beam across the carpet. The light caught a pale forearm, the hem of an emerald silk gown, a heel abandoned like a stunned bird. A woman lay half-curled beside a tipped chair, hair damp from snow, skin flushed the sickly pink of cold. He knelt without touching. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" No answer, only a small tremor passing through her shoulders. Training from a life he'd tried to fold away, the paramedic years rose clean and automatic. Pulse present, pupils responsive, no visible head trauma. The priority was heat. He stripped the foil rescue blanket from his kit, shook it open, and draped it over her, careful to respect the line between help and intrusion. He angled a portable heater toward her, watched the filament glow, then shrugged out of his old Toronto Fire Services jacket, navy canvas, elbows worn smooth, and settled it like a shield over the glittering gown. On the table, a glittering clutch, a champagne flute, a crushed name badge. Claire Beaumont, CEO, Beaumont Quantum, of course. The building's star tenant, frozen under office fluorescence. "You picked the wrong hallway to run out of luck," he murmured, checking her wrist for bruising. A faint mark, nothing more. He found a notepad scribbled, "You were cold. Heaters on? Rest here?" "Malik, building ops." He set it beside the flute, dimmed the overheads, and tested the lock to ensure the door would stay open. The corridor outside lay quiet, red standby lights blinking like patient eyes. He didn't leave. Not really. Malik rolled the maintenance cart to the threshold and parked himself in the hallway, within sight of the lounge door, where any passerby would see him first. From there he could watch the heater cable, the rise and fall of her breathing, and the corridor camera's unblinking dot. A faint alarm chirped 3 doors down, another heat sensor arguing with the cold. He was stepped away for less than a minute to silence it, then returned, leaning against the jamb with the practiced stillness of night workers who learn to occupy spaces without owning them. Time thinned. The storm rattled the windows. Pipes clicked as the building adjusted to the weather's mood. Malik stood his quiet post, the jacket he wasn't wearing keeping a stranger warm. When her breathing evened, he allowed himself to sit on the chair just outside the door, elbows on knees, eyes tracking the small movements that meant life was returning. He did not doze. Men in his line didn't sleep on duty. But the rhythm of the place, hiss, hum, rattle, settled into him like a slow heartbeat. He checked the heater once more, nudged the blanket higher on her shoulder with the edge of his flashlight, never his hands, and waited for the moment every rescuer both expects and fears, waking. Outside, the city began to pale from black to graphite. Streetlights blinked indifferently at the snow. Inside, under ceiling tiles, and a lonely poster about workplace safety, a man kept vigil not because policy required it, but because decency did. He watched until the first faint stir rippled through the blanket, the kind that meant the body was ready to claim itself again. Malik stood, rolled his shoulders, and took 1 step back from the doorway, enough to give space, close enough to answer fear with calm. He glanced once at the corridor camera with its indifferent red eye, then back at the woman under his jacket. Okay, he whispered to no one, to Alana, to the building. Let's bring you back. And when her eyelids fluttered, he was already there. And if you've ever believed one quiet act of decency can still matter in a world built on noise, stay with this story. You won't want to miss what happens next. The hum of the heater reached her first, a low note that made the room feel less hostile. Then pain pressed behind her eyes, and Claire Beaumont surfaced from a dark, fizzy silence into fluorescent dawn. The lounge resolved around her, a table, a tilted chair, a pair of careful heels placed side by side like a promise that she would stand again. The blanket slid from her shoulder. She caught it, startled by the cold air against the back of her neck. Her dress, unzipped, creased, still damp at the hem, whispered of a night that had gone on too long. Someone stood in the doorway, tall, broad, steady. His uniform was the practical navy of night labor. The badge read, Malik Thompson, building ops. Beyond him, a maintenance cart waited like a mule, stubborn and reliable in the hall. He didn't step in. He didn't look away. You're warm enough to sit, he said, voice low, carrying the calm of someone who'd triaged worse. Don't rush, she swallowed. Where am I? Executive Maintenance Lounge. You came off the service corridor. Snow on your shoes. Wrong kind of cold in your skin. A beat. I covered you. Turned the heater on. Claire glanced down at the jacket draped across her. A navy canvas with a faded Toronto Fire Services patch. The lining smelled faintly of smoke and citrus soap. Its weight steadied her in a way she didn't understand. You were a firefighter, she said, not quite asking. I was, he answered. A while ago. Memory came back in broken frames. Rooftop laughter, champagne burn, the elevator button she couldn't focus on, then an arm, solid as a banister, catching her when the floor pitched. Fear flickered. She looked past him to the corridor and saw the small red eye of a security camera. It blinked. Witness, indifferent, and complete. Her voice thinned. Did anyone see me? He shook his head once. No, just me. Are you sure? She hated the plea in it. I stood right there, he said, nodding to the threshold. If anyone had come along, they would have seen me first. They held each other's gaze, for a second longer than strangers usually do. Claire searched his face the way you search a contract, for traps in the fine print. There were none, just tiredness and a kind of patience she associated with paramedics at 3 a.m. or school crossing guards in sleet. What will you do with this? She asked, her voice hardening defensively around the soft thing it was protecting. With what you saw. Make sure you're all right, he said simply. Then go clear a few alarms and fill out a cold weather report. It's Friday. Pipes don't care about scandal. The line almost made her laugh, but the sound died in her throat. You could tell someone, she pressed. You could... I won't, he said, gentle but unwilling to argue a second time. You needed help. You got it. She lifted the edge of the jacket, feeling the worn seam under her fingers. What he was offering wasn't just discretion. It was dignity, restored without ceremony. In her world, dignity was a currency everyone pretended not to trade. The purity of his refusal to leverage it stung. Thank you, she said, forming the words like an oath she didn't quite trust herself to keep. You're welcome. He adjusted the heater's angle with his boot, careful not to come closer than necessary. You might be dizzy standing. I can wait in the hall while you... He gestured to the blanket, to the zipper that had failed her, to the small catastrophes of the night. I'll manage, she said, and to prove it, she did, slowly, the way a person learns again what their body can do. She slid on her heels, pulled the blanket tighter for modesty, and rose. The room tilted and then steadied. He didn't reach for her. His restraint, visible and deliberate, felt like another form of kindness. At the door she paused, eyes drawn again to the corridor camera. The red light blinked, neutral as a metronome. A whole story could be manufactured by that single dot. Angles, timing, what-ifs. She felt the familiar clamp, of crisis, press releases, phone calls, the board's cold voices, start to close around her ribs. She turned back. Mr. Thompson? Malik, he said. Malik. She tried his name. It steadied in her mouth. If anyone asks, they won't hear it from me, he said. Not because I'm afraid to talk, because it isn't mine to sell. A small, unpracticed smile almost found her. Do people always talk to you like this in the middle of the night? Only the ones who wake up, he said. She couldn't tell if it was a joke until he allowed the ghost of a smile to show. Why didn't you leave? She asked, the question coming from some unguarded place. I did rounds, he answered. Close enough to come back, far enough to give you space. That seemed right. Right. The word had edges again. She nodded, gathered the jacket, and folded it once, neat. She meant to hand it to him, but her fingers tightened instead. He noticed and said nothing. Thank you, she said, more firmly now, for seeing me and not taking. Something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or relief that the language they both needed had arrived on its own. You're safe, he said, not as a reassurance, but as a statement of fact he intended to keep true. Claire stepped into the hallway, the building's morning routine starting to stir below them. Vacuum wheels somewhere far off, a coffee machine coughing awake, a door propped, a laugh traveling through ducts. She felt the camera's indifferent blink at her back and thought of all the ways a moment could be twisted by the time daylight hit glass. She looked once more at Malik. If this grows teeth, she said, nodding toward the red light, I'll handle it. He gave a single steady nod. Then, I'll handle what's mine. They didn't shake hands. There are gestures that make things too formal, too fragile. She walked toward the service elevator, each step a negotiation with the body she wore and the image she carried. In the mirrored panel, she saw a woman barefoot in a stranger's jacket become a CEO again, still tired, still human, but upright. Behind her, Malik coiled the heater, cable, and flicked the switch. He stayed in the doorway until the elevator doors closed on her reflection, then glanced at the camera once, as if to say, remember this right. It won't, he knew. Machines only record. People decide what it meant. Snow scuffed against the windows. Somewhere, an alarm chirped, waiting for his hand. He pushed the cart into motion and followed the sound. Morning light bled through the high glass facade of Northline Tower, sharp and cold. The city was waking, but inside the building, whispers had already beaten the sunrise. By 7:30, the first message slipped through the company chat. Did you see it? By 8, the photo was everywhere. A grainy still, captured from a stairwell camera. The image tilted at an angle, low resolution, but undeniable. A man with dark skin and a strong build, his arms steady under the weight of a woman draped in an emerald dress. Her head rested against his shoulder, her face turned away. The caption on the tabloid site read in bold italics, CEO and mystery man, midnight rendezvous or scandal in the snow. The comment threads filled themselves before HR could even draft a response. Power imbalance, one read. So much for professionalism, another. Someone zoomed in, circled the firefighter's patch barely visible on the jacket, and posted it with 3 question marks. Down in the sub-basement, Malik was finishing his shift when Dev, the young HVAC tech, slid his phone across the workbench. You might want to see this, brother. Malik frowned, wiping grease from his fingers before looking down. The screen glowed with the article, his silhouette unmistakable even through the blur. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared. Then he exhaled slowly, the sound somewhere between disbelief and resignation. They really made a story out of a rescue. Dev hesitated. They're saying a lot, man. About her, about you. Some folks upstairs are losing their minds. Malik stood, jaw set. Let them. He powered off the phone and grabbed his work gloves. I've got leaks to fix. He didn't make it past the next corridor before a voice echoed from the doorway. Mr. Thompson. The HR contractor, a thin man in a tight suit with a badge that said Northline Facility Management, waited with a clipboard, and the kind of expression that always preceded bad news. "Need a word, Fat," he said. In the small, sterile HR office, the air smelled like printer ink and apology. The man cleared his throat. "We've been contacted by corporate. There's, an image circulating involving a senior tenant and yourself." Malik folded his arms. "I've seen it. Given the sensitive nature of the situation, we're placing you on temporary leave. Pending review. With pay?" A pause. "Without." Malik gave a short laugh, the kind that held no humor. "I'm not even union. Guess that makes it easier, huh?" "This isn't personal, Mr. Thompson," the HR rep said carefully. "Sure it is," Malik replied, rising. "It's personal the second a good deed turns into a headline." He signed the paper, the pen digging into the page. As he left, the man muttered something about protecting reputations, but Malik didn't stop to listen. He walked out into the service hall, hands shaking just enough to betray the anger under his calm. Outside, snow had turned to slush. He crossed the street toward the cafe across from the tower and stood under the awning, watching the building that had paid his rent and taken his time, now turning on him in a matter of hours. Above, 30 floors higher, Claire Beaumont sat in a boardroom made of glass and silence. The PR team had assembled early, laptops open, eyes darting between her and the growing wildfire online. The head of communications, a woman with perfect posture and a colder voice, slid a folder across the table. "This is the approved statement," she said. "You'll read it to the staff at 9 and send a copy to the press by 10. The message is, fabricated rumor, no misconduct, no employee involvement. Keep it clean, concise, and impersonal." Claire stared at the printed page. The words were polished to the point of sterility. "Ms. Beaumont categorically denies any inappropriate behavior. The unidentified individual in the image is a building contractor with no personal or professional connection." She could almost taste the lie. "Where's Malik Thompson now?" she asked quietly. The PR director hesitated. "The contractor's been suspended. That's standard. Optics, you understand." Optics. The word snapped something inside her. She looked out the window, the city glittering with frost below, and saw her reflection staring back. Immaculate suit, neat hair, eyes rimmed in exhaustion. This was the image she'd built, untouchable, efficient, perfect, and it was suffocating her. At 9 sharp, the internal broadcast light blinked red. Claire took her place behind the podium in the staff auditorium. Rows of employees watching in silence. Cameras streamed to every floor. She could feel the PR director's gaze drilling into her back. The statement sat on the lectern, a sheet of corporate anesthesia. She placed her hand on it, steady, then pushed it aside. Her voice, when it came, was calm but alive. "I know you've seen the photo," she began, "and you've read the headlines. You deserve to hear the truth. From me, not a tabloid." A ripple went through the room. She didn't pause. "Last night after the gala, I was intoxicated and disoriented. I made a mistake staying in the building. I was found by one of our maintenance staff, Mr. Malik Thompson, who helped me to safety. He didn't exploit that moment. He didn't ask for anything. He showed me respect when I couldn't even respect myself." The PR director visibly tensed. A murmur rose from the seats. Claire continued. "I won't deny that I was vulnerable," she said. "But I will deny the suggestion that decency is a scandal. The man you saw in that photograph acted with more integrity in one night than most people show in a lifetime. That's the truth." Silence followed, heavy and electric. Then slowly, a few claps. Hesitant at first, then growing. The PR director's expression froze, somewhere between disbelief and fury. Claire stepped back from the microphone, her pulse thundering. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt clean, not safe, not untouchable, but real. Down on street level, Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He hesitated, then checked the alert. A live feed. Her speech, echoing through the cafe speaker. He listened until the end, then set the phone face down and looked out at the snow melting into rain. She had spoken his name out loud, not to shame him, but to honor him. In a world that thrived on spin, that single act felt louder than any siren. And though Malik didn't know it yet, the real storm was just beginning. The boardroom smelled of polished wood and tension. A dozen executives sat around the long glass table, the city skyline bleeding light behind them. Every face was carved from the same expression: controlled disapproval. Claire Beaumont sat at the head of the table, hands folded, jaw set. The chair of the board, Victor Lang, leaned forward with the slow precision of a man who never raised his voice because money did it for him. "Claire," he began, "you went off script. After the photo leak, our communications team had one directive: minimize exposure, deny involvement. Instead, you stood in front of every employee and, what was it, validated the story." "I told the truth," she said evenly. Lang's lips barely curved. "The truth isn't the issue. Perception is. And right now, perception is bleeding cash. Investors are uneasy. Legal wants you to take a leave, 30 days, minimum, until this settles." "Leave means guilt," Claire replied. "It tells the world I did something wrong. I didn't." "Optics say otherwise," one of the directors added. "The man in that image has a name," she cut in. "Malik Thompson. He did nothing inappropriate." Lang tapped his pen twice, a subtle reprimand. "Claire, this isn't personal. It's strategic. You've built this company's reputation on control, composure. That speech may have been heartfelt, but it painted you emotional, vulnerable, and women in power don't get that luxury." The sentence hung, sharp and cold. Claire leaned back, the light catching in her eyes like flint. "Then maybe it's time they do." A silence spread, some shocked, some almost admiring. Lang exhaled through his nose, slow and measured. "We'll revisit this next week. For now, take the day. Let our people handle the fallout." "I'm not stepping down," she said quietly. He didn't answer her directly. "You'll find it's easier if you do." She rose anyway, gathering her folder, spine straight. "Easier has never been the goal." Outside the room, the air felt thinner. She walked past her assistant's worried glance, ignored the cluster of messages vibrating across her phone. In the mirrored elevator doors, her reflection looked almost foreign, too still for the storm about to come. Across town, in a modest apartment in East York, Malik dropped his tool bag beside the door. The air smelled of pasta and paint, the smell of a home that tried. Naya, 7 years old, sat cross-legged at the kitchen table, a construction paper solar system spread before her. "Hey, kiddo," he said, voice softer now. She looked up, dark curls springing from her ponytail. "Daddy, why are you on Mommy's tablet?" Malik's froze. "What do you mean?" She turned the screen toward him. The headline glared in bold text above a blurry image. "CEO defends mystery man in viral scandal." Naya squinted at it. "They said you're a mystery man. You're not mysterious. You just fix things." He laughed under his breath, a small sound cracking the weight in his chest. "You're right. I do fix things." "Is it bad?" she asked, frowning. "People at school say being in the news is bad unless it's hockey." He crouched beside her, resting a hand on the table. "Sometimes people tell stories because they don't know the real one. They make noise instead of listening." "Like when kids talk over the teacher?" "Exactly. And when that happens, what does the teacher do?" "She waits. Then she says, 'Let's start again.'" Malik smiled. "That's what we'll do too." Naya considered this, tapping a yellow crayon against her chin. "So you didn't do something wrong?" "No, baby. I helped someone who needed help. That's all." She studied him for a moment, then went back to coloring, carefully outlining the orbit of Saturn. "Then they'll figure it out," she said simply. He stood there for a long time after that, watching her fill in stars with gold marker. The world was unfair. He knew that well enough. But watching her trust, pure, uncracked, reminded him why decency mattered, even when it didn't pay. He turned off the kitchen light, leaving her under the soft hum of the lamp, and walked to the window. Outside, snow was melting into rain, the city lights smearing across the glass like spilled truth. That night, the world shifted again. At 10:43 p.m., the second photo hit the internet. Clear, brutal, impossible to deny. Taken from the upper maintenance window, it showed Claire, her face visible this time, eyes closed, lips parted in exhaustion, wrapped in Malik's fire jacket as he carried her through the corridor. No blur now, no deniability. The headline was surgical. Beaumont CEO in arms of contractor. Intimate moment or corporate meltdown. Within an hour, the story climbed every feed, every forum, every device. Hashtags multiplied like frost across glass. At that exact moment, Malik was tucking Naya into bed. His phone buzzed, lighting the room. He saw the image, froze, then quietly flipped it face down. Naya yawned, murmured something about her project, and drifted to sleep, safe inside a world that still made sense. He sat beside her, the phone burning like a secret he didn't ask for. Across the city, Claire stared at the same image on her own screen. The photo was too intimate to be defended, too innocent to be condemned, and yet she knew which way the wind would blow. Her board would circle. The press would swarm. Her fingers hovered over the power button, but she didn't turn the phone off. Instead, she whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. They'll twist it no matter what, so let them. I know what happened. Outside, the storm that had started with whispers finally roared into something larger. Hungry, public, unstoppable. And somewhere between a modest apartment in East York and a glass tower downtown, two people on opposite ends of power looked out at the same falling snow and realized they were now bound not by chance, but by the story the world wanted to write about them. Rain blurred the skyline of downtown Toronto, turning glass towers into soft reflections. Inside Beaumont Quantum, silence replaced the usual hum of ambition. Overnight, Claire Beaumont had become a ghost in her own empire. Her inbox glowed with a single subject line: temporary suspension of executive duties, pending board review. No meeting, no warning, just exile in corporate language. Her security badge still opened doors, but her permissions were gone. PR sent her a guideline script. Legal said, be patient. Then came a final note. We handle the narrative. She stared at the screen until the words dissolved. Her voice had become company property. Claire shut the laptop and watched the rain slide down the window. For 10 years, she'd mastered control. Now one photograph had erased it. Her phone buzzed again. Another voicemail, another polite silencing. She deleted them all, opened her contacts, and scrolled to the number she hadn't saved, but never forgot. She pressed call. 2 rings. Malik Thompson. It's Claire. I figured. They've suspended me, she said. PR is writing the story for me. I assume it's the same for you? He sighed. Administrative leave, which means broke but official. A short, bitter laugh. They want me quiet. I can't breathe in that office. Then get out, he said. I know where the boiler room is. A pause. Then a low chuckle. Guess I left the map too clear. I'll be there in 20. She hung up. The boiler room was humid, alive with steam and noise. It smelled of oil, metal, and endurance. Malik stood by a set of pipes, sleeves rolled, eyes focused. When Claire appeared at the door, hair tied, coat thrown over jeans, he didn't flinch. You weren't kidding, he said. I needed somewhere that doesn't lie, she replied. He gestured to a stool. Sit. It's loud, but honest. She sat, crossing her legs. They've stripped everything. Emails, press, public contact. I'm invisible. He smiled faintly. Welcome to the basement club. They were quiet a while. Machines breathed around them. Then she asked, You ever feel like they can delete your life with a click? Malik leaned against the wall. Used to be a paramedic. 15 years back, I thought saving people made me permanent. Then my wife died on a call. House fire. We saved the kid, not her. Claire's breath caught. I'm sorry. He nodded once. After that, I quit. Couldn't stand sirens. Started fixing buildings instead. Pipes don't scream. She looked at him, eyes softening. You make peace sound easy. It's not, he said. You just learn to keep moving. She stared at the steam drifting through the light. They told me to keep quiet, to let PR manage the narrative, but silence feels worse than scandal. Then don't be silent, he said simply. You think that changes anything? He shrugged. Maybe not them, but it changes you. Her voice lowered. What if it all collapses? It already has, he said, smiling faintly. The trick is to decide what's still worth saving. She met his gaze. And what's worth saving for you? My name, my word, my daughter's respect. Claire nodded. For me, it's my voice. Then that's the rule, Hunt, he said. No lies, no silence, no walking away when it gets hard. She smiled, small but real. That's a dangerous promise. So's honesty. Steam curled between them like ghosts. The hum of the machines became a kind of heartbeat. Claire rose, pulling her coat tighter. They think they can write the story for us, she said. Then, let's rewrite it, he replied. Her lips curved, half amusement, half defiance. You always talk in slogans, Malik? Only when they fit, he said. She turned to leave, but he called after her. Hey, Claire, she paused. For what it's worth, you're handling free fall better than most. She looked back, the faintest hint of warmth in her eyes. Free fall's easy once you stop pretending to fly. The door shut behind her, sealing the heat inside. Malik leaned against the pipe wall, the noise steady in his chest. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like he was losing ground. Outside, the rain thickened, tracing silver veins down the city's glass bones. Inside, in the hum of metal and steam, two people had drawn a quiet line in the noise. No lies, no silence, no surrender. Malik looked at the trembling gauges and whispered, Free fall's not falling. It's learning how to land. And somewhere above them, in the tower built on power and glass, Claire was already taking her first steady breath in days. Snow had melted into the first, pale light of spring when Auntie Joy called. Her voice, warm and bright even through static, carried the kind of energy that ignored bad news. Child, she said to Malik, I've got something for you. Not a miracle, but close enough. By noon, Malik stood in front of the old storefront on Lawrence Avenue East, its windows clouded with dust. The faded sign above it still reading, dry cleaning and alterations. The smell of detergent clung to the brick even after years of vacancy. Auntie Joy, short and solid in her red coat, handed him a ring of keys. Belonged to my brother. He's gone west now. Said if I find someone with good hands and a stubborn heart, let them have a go. Malik looked through the glass at the dark space beyond. It's small. Then it'll fit your dreams before they grow too big, she said with a wink. Claire arrived 10 minutes later, coat flapping in the cold wind, clipboard in hand. When she saw the place, she didn't laugh. She just stepped forward, peered inside, and nodded once. It has walls, a door, and a roof. That's a start. Joy looked between them, amused. You two planning to fix the world in here? Just our corner of it, Malik said. Then get started before I change my mind. She pressed the keys into his palm and walked off down the street, muttering something about good trouble and God's paperwork. The next 2 weeks blurred into sweat, dust, and late-night takeout. The space was bare-boned, cracked tiles, flickering lights, a heater that coughed like an old man. But Malik saw potential where others saw mess. He rewired the outlets, patched the ceiling, and repaired the ancient radiator with parts scavenged from the junkyard. Claire handled everything else. She sold a small portion of her personal shares, just enough to buy 2 refurbished laptops, a printer, and a used coffee machine that hissed louder than the heater. When the banker asked what the withdrawal was for, she said simply, community investment. By the third night, the shop smelled of sawdust and burnt plastic, but when they flipped the main switch, the lights flickered on, soft, golden, and alive. Malik wiped his hands on a rag. Looks better than most boardrooms I've seen, Claire smiled. You've been to exactly one, and it nearly killed me, they laughed, tired but honest. On a sheet of cardboard, Claire wrote in marker, North Star Hub, temporary sign. Why that name? Malik asked. She shrugged. Because even when you're lost, there's always one thing that doesn't move. He nodded, liking that. Let's make it mean something. The first person to walk through the door was Carla, a single mother with tired eyes, and an envelope full of job rejections. She looked around uncertainly. Someone said you help people write things, she murmured. Claire stood from behind the folding table. Resumes, cover letters, forms, whatever you need. Carla exhaled in relief and sat. She spoke quietly about losing her housekeeping job after the holidays, about her son needing asthma medication, about applying again and again and hearing nothing. Claire listened, typed, edited, then printed the new version with deliberate care. At the bottom, she wrote one extra line in italics. Reliable, teachable, ready to start again. Carla read it twice, then looked up, eyes wet. No one ever wrote about me like that before. That's because you never had an honest editor, Claire said softly. The next morning, Mr. Rashid, a veteran in a worn coat, showed up with a folder of government forms. They keep rejecting my disability claim, he said. Says missing documents. I've sent them twice. Malik took the papers, his large hands surprisingly gentle. Let's go through it together. An hour later, they'd scanned every page, uploaded the missing forms, and printed a submission receipt. Rashid shook Malik's hand with quiet gratitude. You run a good place here, he said. We're just starting, Malik replied. Then keep starting, the man said, and left. By the end of the week, 2 teenagers showed up, one holding a skateboard, the other a cracked phone. You guys teach stuff? The taller one asked. Depends on what stuff is, Malik said. Like job skills, emails, talking to bosses? Claire grinned. We can do that. You available after school? The boys nodded, surprised. They didn't expect the CEO from the headlines to be teaching them how to write a proper subject line. That afternoon, they sat in mismatched chairs, typing nervously, while Claire leaned over their shoulders. Remember, she said, your words show respect before you do. By the second week, the hub began to hum with life. Malik set up a small workstation in the corner where he taught anyone who wanted to learn how to fix things. Leaky faucets, frayed cords, wobbly shelves. Claire handled the paperwork, organized workshops, and answered the endless stream of calls that came once the word spread. No ads, just whispers that there was a place in Scarborough where people were treated like they mattered. On Saturday morning, Naya arrived with her backpack and a grin. Daddy said I could help. Claire crouched down to meet her. You're officially our youngest volunteer. Naya beamed. I'm going to teach words. Which word today? Malik asked. Naya wrote it carefully on the whiteboard. Initiative. Then, turning to a little boy sitting nearby, she explained, It means doing something good without waiting for someone to tell you. Claire felt a lump rise in her throat. Malik leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching his daughter like someone seeing light through clouds. That's a big word for a small kid, he said. Naya grinned. Big words make big things. When the day ended, Claire locked the door and stood in the middle of the room. The walls were still chipped, the heater still noisy, but the space pulsed with warmth. Flyers and forms littered the tables. The smell of coffee lingered. On one wall, someone, probably Carla, had taped a hand-drawn sign. No one starts over alone. Claire ran her fingers over the words, then looked at Malik. You think this will last? He shrugged, smiling. We'll keep it alive as long as it keeps us honest. Outside, the city lights flickered on, reflecting off the wet pavement. People hurried past, unaware that in this small corner of Scarborough, something stubborn and new was being born, a place built not on headlines or wealth, but on second chances and the quiet kind of hope that doesn't ask for permission. Inside, Malik turned off the last light and said, half to himself, half to her, Funny thing about broken systems, they forget how strong the people are underneath. Claire looked back at the room glowing faintly through the glass. Then let's remind them, she said. And as they stepped into the night, The cardboard sign above the door fluttered in the wind. North Star Hub, letters hand-drawn, imperfect, and shining all the same. The first inspection came on a gray Wednesday morning, quiet and polite enough to seem harmless. 2 men in reflective vests showed up at North Star Hub, carrying clipboards and wearing the kind of practiced neutrality that made Malik's stomach tighten. City fire compliance, one of them announced. Routine check. Claire looked up from the intake desk. Routine? We've only been open a month. The taller inspector didn't blink. Randomized scheduling. We'll need to examine wiring, exits, extinguishers, ventilation. Malik led them through the small rooms he'd rebuilt with his own hands. He knew every pipe, every outlet, every patch of plaster. But the way the men wrote their notes, slowly, almost eagerly, made him uneasy. After 40 minutes, they gathered by the door. The tall one handed Claire a yellow slip. Several violations, he said. Nothing major, but you'll need to shut down until the adjustments are made. Adjustments? Malik repeated. You mean the brand new outlets I installed? The fire department signed off on those 2 weeks ago. Records show no sign-off, the man replied smoothly. Could be a clerical issue. Claire's voice turned cold. And who scheduled this inspection? The system does it automatically, he said, tucking the clipboard away. Then they left, the sound of their boots fading into the drizzle outside. Malik exhaled slowly. You believe that? Not for a second, Claire said. By the next morning, their garbage pickup was suspended pending review. The Wi-Fi went down. The power flickered twice, each time just long enough to ruin the day's classes. Carla showed up for her resume session, found the lights off, and frowned. You two okay? We're being tested, Claire said carefully. That night, Malik fixed the breaker box himself, crouched under the hum of the pipes, flashlight in his mouth. When he threw the main switch, the lights flared back to life. The sign outside flickered too, North Star Hub, its glow trembling but unbroken. Later, as Claire sorted the day's messages, one email froze her in place. No name, no signature. Just a single line. Disappear while you still can. She printed it out, slipped it into a folder marked Noise, and forced herself to breathe. When Malik saw it, his jaw clenched. You think it's Monroe? Or someone they pay, she said. Either way, we're not giving them what they want. Just then Naya came bounding from the back room, holding a paper rocket she'd made from old printouts. Daddy, look, it flies. Malik smiled and caught her in midair. It sure does, sweetheart. Then he looked at Claire. Not today. They don't get this day. That night, after closing, Claire opened her laptop and created a document titled Incident Log. She listed every interruption, every warning, every shadow. If they wanted her to vanish, they'd have to erase her records first. 2 days later, a woman in uniform entered the hub. Officer Han Nguyen, Community Policing Division. Calm eyes, steady voice. She shook Claire's hand. Got your message. Mind if I take a look? Claire showed her the file. Emails, reports, the skipped services. We think someone's trying to push us out. Nguyen skimmed, the pages nodding slowly. You're right to record this, but listen carefully. Don't confront them, and don't break any locks or cut seals. Play it clean. You gather proof, you win with patience. Malik folded his arms. And while they keep coming, keep your doors open, Nguyen said, and your evidence tighter. There's a community law program that'll help. I'll file a report and flag this. Don't let them bait you into mistakes. When she left, Claire sat in silence. Malik leaned on the table, half smiling. So we're not crazy. No, Claire said. We're dangerous enough to scare someone. He grinned. That's progress. Days passed, heavy with uncertainty, until one morning the shift began quietly, on paper. A local independent outlet, the Scarborough Voice, ran a story under the headline, North Star Hub, helping people, not image. No glossy photos, no dramatics. Just honest writing about Carla getting her job back. Rashid's claim finally approved. And the 2 teens learning workplace skills from a former janitor and a disgraced CO. It spread faster than either expected. A stranger arrived later that day, carrying a box of muffins. Saw the piece, she said shyly. Didn't know who you were, just wanted to say thank you. Claire accepted the box, speechless for once. Malik smiled all afternoon. More requests came, TV spots, podcasts, long interviews. Claire declined them all. We don't need a redemption arc, she told Malik. We just need to keep doing the work. So instead of media tours, they went live every Friday evening from the Hub's small social page. No makeup, no script. Claire sat behind the folding table while Malik filmed on his phone. Today, she said one night, we're talking about how to write an email that gets answered. She spoke clearly, showing how to begin with respect, how to sound confident but not desperate. Malik's voice chimed in with jokes, and people in the chat laughed, asking questions, thanking them. The video reached neighborhoods they'd never seen. By the third week, the streams had doubled in viewers. Comments flooded in. Can you teach cover letters? This helped me get my first interview. Then one morning, Claire found a plain white envelope in the mailbox. No name, just the words North Star Hub written neatly across the front. Inside was a check and a short note. Keep the lights on. 3 months prepaid. Malik held it up, wide-eyed. Anonymous? Or someone who's been where we were? Claire said softly. That afternoon, Lillian Hammond, the volunteer lawyer who'd helped them months ago, arrived with a folder. Heard about your situation, she said. If they're still trying to choke you out, I'll represent you. Pro bono. Claire blinked. Lillian, that's... Don't thank me, the lawyer interrupted. Thank the people who now believe in you. Malik glanced around the bustling room. Carla handing out coffee, Rashid helping a teen with job forms, Naya teaching a new volunteer the word integrity from her handmade flashcards. The place hummed with life. Outside, buses slowed when passing. The cafe on the corner started offering hub discounts. Someone painted a mural on the side wall, an open hand reaching for a star with the words, "Keep rising." At dusk, Claire stood on the sidewalk, watching it glow under the streetlight. You feel that? She asked. Malik joined her, hands deep in his jacket pockets. Yeah, he said after a long pause, the tide's turning. She nodded, voice low but firm. Then we keep going. No speeches, no pity, just work. Behind them, laughter echoed through the open door. The smell of coffee and fresh paper filled the air. North Star Hub was no longer a project or a headline. It was a pulse in the heart of a cold city, proof that decency, when it refused to die quietly, could outlast any system built to silence it. Monday morning broke cold and pale, sunlight slipping through a sky the color of tin. Malik was the first to arrive at North Star Hub. He balanced a paper cup of coffee in one hand and Naiga's drawing, last week's crayon version of the hub, in the other. But when he reached the door, the cup nearly fell from his fingers. A new padlock gleamed against the metal handle. Fresh, heavy, city-issued. Taped beside it was an official-looking paper stamped in red. Notice of code violation, unauthorized occupancy. He read it twice, then again, as if repetition might make it less absurd. He checked the hinges, the mail slot, the windows, all intact. No vandalism this time, just bureaucracy with teeth. 5 minutes later, Claire pulled up, her car skidding slightly on the wet pavement. She stepped out, immaculate as ever in her wool coat, but her face froze the moment she saw the paper. They didn't even call, she murmured, voice tight. They don't need to, Malik said. They think we'll panic. Claire reached for the handle, tugged. The metal clanged, but didn't move. The sound echoed down the empty street like defiance. For a long moment, they just stood there, the locked door between them and everything they'd built. Then Claire straightened her shoulders. They want a scene, she said quietly. Fine, we'll give them one, our way. Malik's brow furrowed. Claire, but she was already unlocking her phone, setting it up on a small tripod she kept in her bag. She opened the hub's live stream page, her expression composed but blazing. When the red light blinked on, she began. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady, despite the cold wind cutting through the street. "If you're just joining, you're looking at the front door of North Star Hub, the community center built by volunteers, by neighbors, by people who decided not to wait for permission to make life better." She stepped aside, showing the padlock and the paper. "This," she said, "was placed here sometime before dawn. No warning, no due process. Just a notice calling our work a violation. But here's the thing. This door isn't just ours. It belongs to every person who walked through it, looking for help, for safety, for dignity." Passers-by slowed, phones coming out, cameras filming. Claire didn't flinch. "So we're not going anywhere," she said. "Not until someone explains how helping people became against code." Malik stood behind her, arms crossed, silent but unshakable. The feed's comment section lit up like wildfire. Hearts, angry emojis, words of support from all over the city. Within an hour, Lillian Hammond, their lawyer, arrived. Heels clicking against the sidewalk, a folder tucked under her arm. "I've filed an emergency injunction," she said calmly. "Give me 2 hours." Not long after, Officer Han Nguyen appeared as well, her presence quiet but commanding. "We're here to make sure things stay peaceful," she said. "No one touches the lock until we confirm legal authority." Reporters started showing up, local first, then bigger outlets. The live stream climbed past 10,000 viewers. At noon, Lillian returned, waving a printed document like a flag. "Court order," she said. "Signed. This lock comes off. Legally." Han gave a small nod. "Proceed." Malik took the bolt cutter from her and snapped the padlock with one clean motion. The sound cracked through the air, sharp and satisfying. Claire didn't smile, but her eyes glimmered. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras clicked. Someone started chanting, "This is our door," until it became a rhythm, echoing across the street. Claire looked at Malik. "They wanted us to react with fear." He grinned. "Instead, we gave them proof." She nodded. "From now on, we don't defend, we lead." And just like that, the story changed course. The week after Claire's open letter felt deceptively calm, as if the storm had decided to wait before striking again. Donations trickled in, volunteers doubled, and North Star Hub felt more alive than ever. But beneath that warmth, something darker was shifting. It started with a call Claire almost missed, a city clerk leaving a carefully worded voicemail. "This is a courtesy notice. There's been discussion among council members regarding your occupancy permit. Someone from the Beaumont Foundation has raised concerns about compliance and community zoning." Claire froze. The Beaumont Foundation, her former company's philanthropic arm, now run by the same board that had forced her out. The message was clear. They were coming for her again, this time through paperwork instead of tabloids. Within 2 days, the Hub's account at the local credit union flagged unusual activity. The online portal showed an error. Transaction delayed due to verification. It should have been a routine rent transfer. Now it was under review. Then came the third blow. The hardware supplier called Malik to cancel the next delivery of heaters and extension cords. "Sorry, man," the rep said quietly. "We got word from the distributor. Said your order's frozen pending legal clarification." Malik gripped the phone tighter. "Legal clarification for what?" The man hesitated. "Look, I didn't say this, okay? But word is, somebody high up told the city you're operating without oversight. They don't want to be caught in the crossfire." Malik hung up slowly. He'd fought fires before, but never one made of bureaucracy. When he told Claire, she didn't swear or shout. She just nodded, the way soldiers do when they realize the next move has already been made. "They're squeezing us soft," she said. "Not arrests, not raids, just pressure, quiet enough to look legal." "So we document everything," Malik replied. "Every call, every skipped invoice, every damn excuse they throw at us." From that night on, the Hub became half community center, half command post. Malik kept a notebook in his pocket everywhere he went. Timestamps, screenshots, license plate numbers. He logged each strange visit, The random maintenance guy who took photos of the back alley, the graffiti that appeared overnight, reading Fraud Hub, the uncollected trash bags piling behind the building. Claire built a digital archive on an old hard drive, every file, every photo, mirrored twice. If they want to erase us, she said, they'll have to rewrite the internet first. It was exhausting, and yet strangely clarifying. They weren't just surviving now, they were preparing for war, the kind fought with documents and witnesses instead of weapons. One evening, Malik stood by the bulletin board, looking at the pinned collection of receipts, photos, and inspection slips. You ever think we'd end up running a crime board? Claire smiled faintly. No, but at least this time the criminals are visible. A few days later, Carla burst through the door holding her phone. You need to see this, she said. A blog post, unsigned but clearly sourced, detailed a quiet lobbying effort by the Beaumont Board to revoke small business permits linked to unsanctioned nonprofits using public resources. The examples listed were vague, but one was unmistakably the hub. Unbelievable, Elith, Claire muttered. They're using charity law to strangle an actual charity. Then we fight it publicly, Malik said. Not yet, she replied. If we shout too soon, they'll call it panic. We need more than anger. We need people. The following Sunday, they gathered at Regent Park United Church, a red brick building that had seen too many community fights to count. Folding chairs filled the basement hall. The air smelled of coffee and wet coats. Claire stood near the front, looking out at the crowd. Students, parents, retirees, small business owners. Some had never met her before, but all had heard of the hub. Malik was beside her, holding a folder thick with printed evidence. When the chatter died down, Claire spoke first. I know you've seen the headlines. I know some of you have heard the whispers, that we're breaking codes, that we're not legitimate. I'm here to tell you that's not true. What's happening to us isn't a mistake. It's a message. Someone powerful wants to remind us that good things only survive if they're convenient. Murmurs rippled through the room. Malik opened the folder and began laying out documents across a table, photos, receipts, inspection logs, timestamps. This is what inconvenient good looks like, he said. Uncollected trash, canceled deliveries, locked doors. Every time we rise, they try to shut the light off. An older man near the back stood. So what do we do? Claire glanced at Malik, then back to the crowd. We show up, she said simply. At City Hall. Not angry, not violent, just visible. They can ignore a complaint. They can't ignore 100 people standing together. A woman raised her hand. And if they still don't listen? Then we make them answer on record, Claire replied. We'll request hearings, file appeals, bring the press if we have to. But it starts with presence. The pastor, an elderly woman with silver hair, stepped forward. You'll have this space anytime you need it, she said, and you'll have us. Applause broke out, soft at first, then rolling like a wave. Malik felt something in his chest loosen, the kind of relief that only comes when a battle stops feeling lonely. After the meeting, as people lingered to sign volunteer sheets and take flyers, Claire stood near the church door watching them go. Her face was pale with exhaustion, but her eyes burned steady. They wanted to isolate us, Malik said quietly. They forgot something, she answered. We're not the ones who built this alone. He looked around, at Carla helping a senior with his walker, at two teens setting up chairs, at Officer Nguyen in plain clothes, handing out coffee at the back. The fight had grown beyond them now. Outside, the evening light faded over Regent Park, and the first stars appeared, faint but certain. Claire zipped up her coat. Tomorrow, she said, we take the truth to City Hall. Malik nodded. And this time, he said, we're not knocking, we're walking straight through the door. The shift didn't take long. Within days, their victory clip, the one where Malik broke the padlock while Claire stood beside him, was everywhere. But along with the praise came a darker tide. One night, while sorting comments on the Hub's page, Claire froze at a new message pinned under a fake profile. Ask her about Montreal, or Vegas. Ask her about the internship she bought her way into. Her fingers tightened on the mouse. The words were like ice water, too specific to ignore. She closed the laptop, paced the room, then opened it again. The post had already been shared dozens of times. Malik noticed the tension in her shoulders. What is it? Old ghosts, she said quietly. He waited, but she didn't elaborate. You don't have to fight every lie, Claire. She looked up, eyes hard. It's not a lie, he blinked. When I was 22, she said, voice low. I was desperate. There was a corporate internship program in Montreal. Later moved to Vegas for expansion. Competitive, elite. I didn't get in, but I made a deal. I didn't sleep with anyone, didn't break the law, but I let someone take credit for my work in exchange for a recommendation. I climbed faster because of it. It's followed me ever since. Malik said nothing, just listened. I thought burying it was safer, she continued. Now I realize silence keeps the poison alive. He nodded slowly. Then you do what you always do. You speak. That night she sat at her desk and wrote a letter, not to defend, but to own. When I was 22, I made a choice that wasn't honest. I thought it was the only way forward. It wasn't. It taught me something that I've carried ever since. We are not the worst thing we've ever done. We are the next thing we choose to do. I chose silence for too long. Now I choose transparency. She posted it the next morning with no PR edits, no legal polish, just her name. Within hours it spread. Some mocked her, others called her brave. But as the day passed, the comments began to change. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. We all have a Montreal. Honesty like this is rare. Don't let them use it against you. Malik read the thread quietly that evening. You realize you just rewrote the rules, he said. Claire looked up from her screen. No, I just stopped pretending they didn't apply to me. Outside, the lights of Scarborough shimmered in the distance, reflecting against the hub's window like quiet stars. Inside, the hum of the heater mixed with the steady rhythm of typing as Claire drafted the next post, this time about forgiveness, not scandal. The tide had turned again, not by force or power, but by something rarer, the courage to be fully seen and still stand tall. The marble steps of Toronto City Hall were slick with morning frost when Malik and Claire arrived, bundled against the wind. Behind them, a stream of people followed. Neighbors, volunteers, single parents, students, and seniors. They carried handmade signs that read, "Hands off our hope," and "The hub belongs to the people." The morning air buzzed with quiet determination. Inside, the council chamber was already full. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters whispered names. Council members adjusted microphones and scrolled through notes. At the front, a sign read, "Public Hearing, North Star Hub, Permit Review." Claire felt the air tighten around her. Malik stood beside her, steady as a wall, his calloused hands folded neatly. Council Lieutenant Chairwoman Deborah Vance tapped her pen on the table. This session is now in order. We will begin with statements from concerned parties. Representatives from the hub, you may proceed. Claire nodded and turned to the crowd. The sight stopped her breath. So many faces she recognized. Carla, the single mother who'd first walked into the hub with nothing but a resume and a trembling voice, stood near the front row. Behind her, 2 teenagers clutching notebooks, and Mr. Rashid, the retired veteran in his old service jacket. Carla spoke first. Her voice shook, but her chin stayed high. When I came to the hub, I didn't even know how to write a cover letter. I'd been turned down 6 times for jobs I was qualified for. Claire taught me how to tell my story. Now I'm working full-time at a logistics firm. The hub didn't give me charity. It gave me dignity. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Next came the 2 teens, nervous but proud. I used to think no one would hire a kid like me, said one. Malik taught me how to fix wiring and how to stay calm when things break. He says the world needs people who can rebuild. The other added, now I want to be an apprentice electrician. I even got a mentor through the hub. Then Mr. Rashid rose, voice gravelly with age. I served this country for 20 years. When I retired, the paperwork to get my benefits was a nightmare. The hub helped me file everything, 1 page at a time. They don't just fix buildings, they fix people. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Even Chairwoman Vance looked briefly away. Claire stepped forward. Her notes stayed folded in her hand. She didn't need them. I could read you statistics, she began softly. How many people we've helped. How many resumes sent. How many hours volunteered. But none of that is why I'm here. She looked directly at the council members, each one frozen between empathy and caution. I lost my position as CEO because I told the truth about a system that rewards silence more than integrity. That truth cost me everything I thought defined success. But what I found after losing it, she said, pausing, was something better. Community. A hush spread through the chamber. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. The North Star Hub isn't a rebellion. It's a reminder that people are not disposable, and neither is decency. You can take away permits, funding, titles, but you can't take away what the city becomes when we start caring about each other again. Applause broke out, spontaneous and unplanned. Vance raised her gavel, but even she didn't strike it down immediately. Then Malik stepped forward. He wasn't wearing a suit, just his work shirt under a jacket too late for the weather. He spoke quietly, his voice steady. I'm not here for speeches, he said. I'm here because one night, months ago, I had a choice. I found someone on a floor who could have been humiliated, and I decided not to walk away. If I had, none of you would be sitting here today. He glanced at Claire, then back to the council. That's all this is about. Doing the right thing when nobody's watching, and keeping the lights on for people who need to find their way back. The chamber went still again. Malik nodded once and stepped aside. Councilwoman Vance cleared her throat. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We'll now open the floor for deliberation. One councillor, a man in a charcoal suit, spoke first. We appreciate the sentiment, but emotions aside, there are real zoning violations and fiscal inconsistencies that can't be ignored. Another councillor, a woman with bright glasses, cut in sharply. Inconsistencies caused by harassment from powerful donors, if I'm reading these documents correctly. Maybe the problem isn't the hub. Maybe it's the people trying to bury it. The room murmured again. A third councillor leaned forward. The city was founded by people who built something from nothing. I see no reason we should punish others for doing the same. Vance sighed, rubbing her temples. We'll move to a vote. Proposal to extend North Star Hub's community permit for a 12-month pilot period, conditional on quarterly transparency reports. Claire's heart thudded once, hard. Malik exhaled slowly beside her, hands raised around the horseshoe-shaped table. 1, 2, 3, then 4 against, 5, 4, 6 against. It came down to the last councillor, a young man at the far left nervously flipping through his papers. The room held its breath. He hesitated, then raised his hand. In favor, he said. The final tally, 7-6. Motion passed. Applause erupted. People stood, cheering, crying, hugging. Carla wiped her eyes. Mr. Rashid saluted Malik across the room. The teens jumped and high-fived. Claire didn't move at first. She just stood there, feeling the weight in her chest lift, replaced by something lighter. Not triumph, but relief. Malik touched her shoulder gently. We bought time, he said quietly. She nodded. Time's enough. Time's how change starts. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. But Claire didn't give interviews. Instead, she turned toward the crowd, her people, and smiled. For the first time since the night she'd woken on that maintenance couch, she didn't feel like she was rebuilding her life. She felt like she was helping to build a city worth living in. Winter loosened its grip on the city. The slush on the sidewalks thinned, giving way to puddles that reflected the faint blue of a Toronto spring. Months had passed since the vote at City Hall, months that felt like both a lifetime and a single heartbeat. The headlines had shifted. The Beaumont board announced a new CEO, a man with a PR smile and a reputation for restoring confidence. The press called him the safe choice. He made promises about rebranding empathy and rebuilding public image. For a week, the media followed him everywhere, ribbon cuttings, charity brunches, photo ops with interns. Then the attention died. The city had moved on. But down in Scarborough, the North Star Hub was alive like never before. On any given morning, the front door barely had time to close before someone else walked in. A woman holding a folder of job applications, a man carrying a small box of tools, hoping to learn how to start a repair business, teenagers helping one another with GED prep. Claire arrived early most days, her sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. She'd traded the precision of boardroom heels for worn leather boots, and no one seemed to notice or care. Malik was always there first, tuning the space heater, checking wiring, refilling the coffee machine. The sign-up sheets overflowed. The line for the resume workshop stretched into the hallway. Evenings were louder now. Laughter, music, the sound of people practicing introductions they hadn't dared to speak for years. "This is chaos," Malik said one afternoon, watching the crowd with mock despair. Claire smiled. Exhaustion brightened her eyes. The good kind. On the bulletin board near the door hung newspaper clippings. Not scandals, but stories. Community rebuilds, through honesty. Former CEO's hub becomes model for civic renewal. None of them were perfect, but none of them twisted the truth. Sometimes, when the crowd thinned, Claire would stand at the window and look out over the street. There was still the ache of all she'd lost, her title, her old life, the illusion of control. But it no longer felt like grief. It felt like balance. One gray Thursday afternoon, Officer Han Nguyen stopped by. She was out of uniform, dressed in jeans and a heavy sweater, but her presence carried the same authority. "I thought I'd deliver this in person," she said, handing Claire a thin folder. Claire opened it. Inside was a summary report from the Business Integrity Commission. She skimmed the first few lines, then stopped. Investigation findings. Multiple contractors linked to harassment of North Star Hub confirmed. Administrative penalties applied. No criminal charges recommended. Her eyes lifted. "It's not much." Han nodded. "No arrests, but the fines are public record now. The message is out. They can't play invisible anymore." Malik leaned over the counter, reading the report upside down. "Sometimes that's all it takes," he said. "Sunlight." Han smiled faintly. "That's what my grandmother used to say. You can't scrub mold with darkness." Claire let out a slow breath. "So it's over?" "Not over," Han replied. "Just quieter, which in your case is progress." They shared a small laugh. Before leaving, Han turned back. "You know," she said, "what you did here, it made a difference for people like me, too. Cops need reminders of what justice actually looks like." Claire blinked, caught off guard. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Han said. "Just keep the lights on." Later that evening, the last of the volunteers left. The air smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. Malik stood on a ladder near the front window, hammer in hand. "Careful," Claire called, half amused. "That beam's not exactly regulation." "I trust it," he said. "It's held this long." He positioned a small wooden plaque he'd carved over the weekend. Sanded smooth, the letters burned by hand. Claire stepped closer, reading aloud as he worked. "No one belongs in chains, not of the body, not of the soul." Malik climbed down, wiping sawdust from his hands. "Thought it fit." Claire looked at it a long moment. The words hung perfectly level, glowing in the soft light from the window. "It's more than fitting," she said quietly. "It's who we are now," he smiled. "Then we keep it there, so no one forgets." Outside, dusk settled slowly, tinting the storefront in amber. Across the street, a boy was helping his younger sister carry a box of donated books. In the reflection of the glass, Claire could see herself, not as the fallen executive or the headline scandal, but as someone present. Inside the hub, laughter still echoed faintly from the back room. Naya had painted a small mural on the far wall, stars, over a skyline streaked with silver. At the bottom, in a child's uneven handwriting, it read, "Light travels farther when it's shared." Claire traced the words with her eyes, then turned to Malik. "You know," she said, "I used to think legacy meant building something that outlasted you." He tilted his head. "And now? Now I think it's just making something that keeps growing, even when you stop holding it." Malik looked at her for a long moment, then nodded toward the plaque. "Looks like we're doing both." They stood there in silence, side by side, watching the evening settle over Scarborough, the faint hum of traffic, the rustle of wind against glass, the pulse of a neighborhood that had learned, against all odds, to believe again. The hub wasn't perfect, the city wasn't healed, but the doors were open, the lights were warm, and for now, that was enough. By the time the first snow melted into the gutters, North Star Hub had outgrown its walls. The city had given them a 1-year permit. 6 months in, they were already using every square inch of the building, and still, people kept coming. On a clear Saturday morning, banners stretched across the entrance. Community Expansion Day. Inside, folding tables had been transformed into makeshift classrooms. The old storage room was now a workshop with tool racks along the wall, wrenches, soldering irons, and the soft hum of a 3D printer donated by a retired engineer. At the back, a new sign read, "Resume Lab, Build Your Story." Carla stood behind the desk, coaching a nervous young man on how to phrase temporary jobs into project experience. In the next room, Malik guided a group of teenagers through the basics of electrical safety. Electricity doesn't forgive carelessness, he told them, smiling when one of the kids repeated it like a mantra. Claire moved from room to room, greeting everyone, sleeves rolled, clipboard under her arm. Her face glowed with the same energy that once lit boardrooms. Only now it was softer, truer. Every corner buzzed with purpose. In the far corner, volunteers stacked wool coats and mittens on wooden shelves under a hand-painted sign, "Winter Warmth Station." Steam drifted from a kettle, mixing with laughter and the faint metallic scent of fresh paint. A few reporters were there too, but this time, no one posed. There were no speeches, no sound bites. Just work, honest, unpolished, alive. At noon, Claire clapped her hands. "Everyone, gather near the front," she called. "Naya has something to share." The crowd parted for Malik's daughter, now 8, wearing her favorite purple sweater and holding a glitter-decorated box covered in foil stars. She set it carefully on a stool. "This is the astronomy box," she announced proudly. "Everyone writes one wish, not for themselves, but for someone else. Then we keep them here till next winter, when we see which ones came true." The room chuckled warmly. Naya unfolded a small paper slip and began to read. "My wish," she said, "is that Daddy gets more people to fix stuff with him, because when he fixes things, he smiles." Laughter filled the space, followed by applause. Malik blushed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Guess I've been caught." Claire crouched beside Naya, smiling. "That's a good wish," she said softly, "and maybe one we can all help with." Naya beamed and placed the paper in the box. A few others followed. Carla, Mr. Rashid, 2 of the teens. Soon the foil box glittered with folded notes like tiny stars. Malik lifted it gently and placed it on the shelf by the front window. "Right where the sun can find it," he said. Outside, the afternoon light slanted gold across the pavement, reflecting in the puddles left by the last of the snow. Claire leaned against the doorframe, watching the bustle inside, the click of keyboards, the clang of tools, the steady rhythm of small, determined lives rebuilding. Malik joined her, wiping his hands on a rag that would never truly come clean. "You realize that," he said, "we started this with one busted heater and a bad coffee machine." She smiled, and a lot of stubbornness. "Mostly yours," he teased. She shook her head. "Mostly yours. I just refuse to stay quiet." They stood side by side on the threshold. Behind them, voices rose, laughter, typing, the kettle's whistle, all the sounds of persistence turned into music. Across the street, a bus stopped. A woman in a red scarf looked toward the hub's windows and smiled, just before stepping on. The reflection of her smile caught the light, flickered across the glass, and lingered there, a faint echo of what the place had become. Claire exhaled, slow and steady. "Do you think it'll last?" Malik looked out at the soft drizzle beginning to fall, the snow melting into water, into something new. "If we keep showing up," he said, "it already has." They didn't move, didn't need to. The wind carried warmth from inside, coffee, paper, human breath. Behind them, Naya's laughter rippled through the open door, blending with the low hum of life, continuing. No grand speeches, no promises. Just two people, a community, and the quiet conviction that hope, once found, doesn't need to shout to be heard. As the first sunlight broke through the thinning clouds, the hub's windows glowed like lanterns, and the words carved above the door caught the light once more. No one belongs in chains, not of the body, not of the soul. Inside, the laughter went on, steady, warm, and real, carrying forward like a heartbeat that refused to fade.